Go.
All right, so this week's topic is online influencers and the ideas industry. I'm going to give a bit of a background description about what I mean by ideas industry, because that's a new phrase to me as well, and it's really the reason why I brought this up as a topic. So the ideas industry is referring to kind of just the group of people who kind of make a living and their careers are centered around kind of spreading ideas and giving talks and just convincing people, selling people on ideas, right? In economics, I guess I've heard about this much earlier. It wasn't called that. Like they like to, if I recall correctly, they like to group industries into like sectors. There's like the primary sector, right, which does agriculture and like raw materials. There's manufacturing. Then you get to services, and then there's like the fourth sector that they told me was R&D, right? And today I feel like the ideas industry kind of really closely ties in with that. It's just all that like intellectual bit, and this is when it's starting to be, I guess, monetized, right? And so I guess one of the best examples I've seen of this would be TED Talks, right? I think TED Talks are fairly popular, and if you consider how much they're getting paid, 70, 80 grand per talk, and how many of them there are, right? It's starting really to become an industry. So I thought the name was really apt. And then I thought that it was like, well, TED Talks are just one kind of way where people get on the web or in public, try to sway opinions and influence people. And then I thought, well, okay, maybe more generally, the ideas industry should incorporate what some people might call online influencers. So kind of with those sorts of general ideas in mind, I wanted to bring in the topic today to see what does everyone think about this ideas industry? Am I overcomplicating things, or is there something more to it that I'm missing, right? Like it's just an interesting idea that because I never previously thought that a TED Talk or things like TED Talks were really like an industry. I always thought it was just kind of some guy giving a talk and you just listen to it and whatever.
Okay, well, my first thought is like, so why the comparison with online influencers? Because I guess, at least when I think of, I don't know, I draw the comparison to like in the entertainment industry for online influencers, or maybe I'm sort of like, when I think of online influencers, I think of like Twitch streamers and YouTube channels. I guess it could also be like, whatever Instagram models and whatever pages they have. But like at least for like Twitch and YouTube, I feel like there's like a very direct comparison to the entertainment industry, and I would not draw the connection to the ideas industry. But yeah, I do think the ideas industry like label is interesting for sure with the whole TED Talk thing. Yeah, it's just people talking.
So the reason I drove the comparison was because I find it that a lot of the more successful entertainment sphere guys, like people who started there, right, and they have a big following there, they rarely stay in their lane, so to speak, right? Because it's just like the same thing where like celebrities, right, they'll get interviewed about like social issues and political issues and things like that. They'll be asked to render an opinion, right? And oftentimes, they're entitled to an opinion and they'll say it, right? But because they have such a big following, that often translates into a widespread influence or spreading of an idea, right? So whether or not they actually monetize that, there's definitely that potential. And in that same way, I think a TED Talk can potentially monetize an idea, right? Their following doesn't necessarily come from the entertainment sphere. They might have been an academic in the past, right, and gained some clout that way and reputation. But all you need really, step one, is get people to believe you. And then step two, you can say whatever the heck you want. And kind of the general level of information that a lot of people have, a lot of times you can say a lot of things and influence people in many different ways, right? That's why I drew the comparison.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like your attitude towards all this is a little bit maybe skeptical. You're a little dubious of like the industry label. Like, yeah, I don't know. My impression is that you don't think that these people are actually like productive members of the economy, and it's just like they're like, I mean, the way you describe, like, oh, they're just spouting ideas, and then they get money.
Well, so here's the thing, right? And this is why I thought it was interesting to call it an industry, right? Because typically when you talk about an industry, you kind of associate it with some sort of product or service, right? That's being rendered. That's how you measure things in economics, in fact, right? Like, it's like, do you make a product or did you supply a service? And already when you get into things like professional services, it starts to get a little bit hand wavy. Like, what exactly do you do for a living, right? And where do you generate value for society? I think the ideas industry or these talkers push that to kind of a new level, right? And so like as to, and I think my skepticism kind of comes a lot from the fact that this connection between what they do and what that translates to for society and the amount that they're paid, these 3 points, like the connection is so vague that I didn't used to think of it as an industry, right? I just thought of it as a completely separate entity. And so, yeah, I am somewhat skeptical about how much, like, really, is this someone's talk, that specific talk, going to be worth 80 grand, right? I doubt it. So,
Well, people are worth how much they're willing to pay them, or something like that. Maybe that's not the exact
well,
phrase, but
yes, I see that, right? That's in a very practical sense, right? In the same way that the stock market functions, right? Like the price of the stock is just the amount the next guy is willing to pay for it. But
yeah,
it's also, situations like these that sometimes result in events that people would call scams, right? Like, I could tell you, oh, this is worth something, right? Like I basically tell you this great story about how good something is, right? You buy into it, right? And later it turns out to be a Ponzi scheme, and they're like, oh, I want my money back. Well, it's harder to make that sort of accusation here because they didn't really sell you anything in particular, but kind of the fact that people are willing to pay that kind of money for, something that if you were to put it into an accounting book, you'd be like, so what did I get? Because I just lost 80K.
Well, you got the TED Talk experience. I mean, people, go to attend them. They get like the ticket money, and yeah, maybe some people just like enjoy that. And so, I don't know. At least the thought that came to mind for me was like, it's having a really, really, really nice car that maybe you never drive. It's just, you spend money on it because you like it, or you have like a baseball card that is like not necessarily intrinsically valuable, but it's just,
so,
you
so
like
I
it.
don't know about like maybe other instances, but I think with the TED Talks, I think you can kind of tie that to sort of entertainment industry as well. It's not like it's not exactly going to a concert and listening to a song, but you're going, you like attend this place where this person is talking about something interesting, and it's kind of stimulating your mind. Like, and I think that's why people pay for it. It's in some form, it's entertaining. To like go to this and hear this person like talk and hear their ideas about it.
Yeah, I mean, they can, I guess.
So I would it, and I was saying just in the case of like TED Talks, I think you could probably call that entertainment.
And Osman's description of it made it sound like a status symbol, like, oh, I've been to a TED Talk in person, right? Like it's like a luxury product.
I'm sure I'm sure that's why some people would do it too. Yeah.
So like, people can they might have individual reasons why they attend. It's just kind of like, I thought it was a good idea to think about it as an industry rather than just something in a separate category, right?
Yeah, a member of the entertainment industry. What's wrong with that characterization?
I don't know that there's anything wrong with it.
But you just
But
saw
again,
it.
I
You just
haven't
saw
thought
it as
about
a
it that
set,
way.
right?
So,
Right.
so for example, the thing that started crossing my mind were specific examples. So, like for example, when we got Michael Bloomberg to come to do our commencement. Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah. You know, how much was he paid? Was he paid? Is this an example of someone operating in the ideas industry? What about politicians, right? Like, are they also part of the ideas industry? You know, so it's just kind of like trying to take that concept and kind of really apply it to looking at different aspects of the world. It seems like the reach of this concept is actually quite broad.
I might have missed it, but what was your like most recent I guess encounter with like this topic? I think you may have mentioned it earlier in the video.
Like what, like how did I come across this phrase?
Yes, yes.
So someone just made a YouTube video randomly, just they made this claim. It's like, oh, you know, there's this big ideas industry, and they started giving examples of things like TED Talks, for example. I think they were talking more about kind of like kind of responsible, what's the phrase for that? It's kind of like being responsible on the internet in terms of like when you have followings, right? Making sure that what you say, you got to understand a lot of people hear what you say and might react to that, right? It's, you know, I think they took a stab at Trump for the whole January 6th debacle, right? Like, you know, things of that nature, kind of a broader commentary on the actual impacts of internet influence, right? And one aspect of it is the ideas industry. They spent a lot of time talking about that as well. Kind of saying like they had a lot more of a conspiracy angle on it, where it's kind of like, you know, the reason why people are willing to pay that much money for, you know, someone to get up and give a talk is it's kind of like, it's like the thing they like to say about consultants, right? It's like they take your watch to tell you the time. They said a lot of the ideas that people end up selling through these channels are very kind of hand wavy and, you know, just kind of vague value driven sells, right? So it's like very popular with folks at large companies such as Google or like investment banks, right? So the example that person gave, I think, had to do with LGBT rights. It's like, you know, there's a lot of people coming out talking about how we can, you know, seamlessly incorporate these values into our companies and whatnot, right? And, you know, that video didn't dissect any particular one a lot, but it just made a general concept. A lot of these ideas, if you actually break down what they're saying specifically, you can't really isolate specific actions, but they kind of talking about really appealing big ideas, and a lot of people kind of just sit there and say, yes, we agree. Yes, this sounds very good. Yes, you know. So.
Yeah, I feel like I know a lot, especially very popular online influencers, you know, they'll say nice things, you know, oh, no one should be racist, you know. You know, they'll say really nice things, but nothing really like significant, you know, nothing that adds anything like I think helpful, you know, to any kind of conversation or like any actual actions or I see what you're saying. Yeah. And a lot of that's just being, you know, wide appeal, you know, at least with online influences, you're trying to appeal to as many people as possible without losing viewers, right? You know, if you take a stance, someone's gonna, you know, go against it and you're gonna lose followers.
Yeah, exactly. And that brings up a great point, because I think another interesting aspect about that video was it kind of came up with two concepts. I may not remember the exact terms they used precisely, but I think there was a thought leader, and then there was like a public intellectual, I think. The names are fairly arbitrary, but the distinction they wanted to draw there was public intellectuals, I think, were meant to be people who were generally critical for the benefit of society in the sense that, they might comment on a variety of government policies and say, here's what I think that, this is going to what kind of impact it's going to have, and kind of make an opinion with the kind of implicit intent being trying to generate discourse that ultimately improves any particular situation. Whereas thought leaders is the category of people that this person would put into saying that these folks just kind of want to say things that are kind of harmless and just makes everyone happy. And now they're getting paid tons and tons of money to do that.
It's the TED Talkers.
So a
I
lot of
don't
the
know
examples that person picked do come from TED Talks.
Ah.
And my personal opinion on TED Talks is that there's a very big variance in quality. Some TED Talks, I look at it and I was like, okay, this is very focused. It's very specific. And, I approve the way that person kind of communicates, right? I mean, it's subjective, right? There are other TED Talks where I'm like, what are you really saying? It sounds nice, but what?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's a subjective thing, but it's just kind of like, think about it kind of, as Mellis was saying, maybe as part of the entertainment industry. I think that's just a completely new lens to look at the thing.
So when you're describing the former category, public leader, what was it?
No, public intellectual.
Public intellectual. That just reminded me of like history class and philosophers, and like how, I don't know, I like in history class you learn about different philosophers and how they sort of like shaped their time period with like like what is it, John Locke, and like just like the rights of man. And so suddenly we get the Declaration of Independence, and like I don't know, I feel like the main idea is that like a lot of times these philosophers are really providing the underpinnings for like these big achievements that are like these, like, maybe like this social progress that's being had, like, I don't know, Karl Marx, right? And like communism, right? Like, that's another example.
Yeah, I think that
yeah.
person would definitely agree that philosophers would fall under that category.
Right. But now this, the role of the philosopher has become industrialized.
Yeah, in a nutshell, it's been commercialized.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's helping me think about it a little bit more.
Yeah, no one's saying anything important anymore.
It's not just one person anymore, right? Because I feel like before it was just like one philosopher. Karl Marx has this like big idea, and then suddenly, a whole bunch of shit happens because of him. But I don't know.
Now anyone can be a philosopher.
Yeah, I know, because of the internet, right?
Yeah.
This platform, this like super democratic platform, with this market of ideas. Yeah. But like, I guess, I don't know, that's just making me think like, where is this like industry or this market like really taking place? Is it like Twitter and social media, or like, I don't know. It seems like the natural place to be, for like where the ideas industry like lives, or where these public intellectuals live.
Where do they live?
Like where like,
or where these I guess you could say not really a transaction, but
maybe like in the old days it would be like at the forum, right?
Well, so one thing,
he'd stand on a box in the middle of the town square and just shout stuff.
Exactly.
I will say that one comparison that was made was to think tanks.
Oh, okay.
As a kind of a pre-internet sort of entity in the thought ideas industry.
Okay.
And today, I think for a lot of people, they come to associate particular think tanks with particular biases and political agendas, right? That's kind of what led me to think was, okay, so does the ideas industry encompass our politics?
Does it encompass our politics, huh? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of politics is just people blabbing their mouths, right?
Or at least getting that is the politics, but at least trying to get the votes, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
say an idea that seems to appeal to people, and then you
Yeah.
figure out the logistics later.
But at least with politics, at least with politics though, there is a little bit more interfacing with like policy, right?
Yeah.
And I think I don't know, the ideas industry is maybe one level detached from that. So you
Yeah.
know, politics is it's I certainly see the comparison, but I think it is at the end of the day rooted in the government and government policy and things getting done, right? Or at least that's the goal, that's the hope.
Well, yeah. So I mean, that's why like different TED Talks. We're going to talk about TED Talks specifically. Have different degrees of, I'm going to call it quality, but definitely focus, right? So one example that the video was somewhat critical about was talking about this Harvard sociologist or psychologist, right? But basically, she wrote many papers, right? And the one particular paper is talking about power posing. You guys heard of that phrase before?
I
I
have.
haven't. Oh,
All right.
okay.
Well, Melis, if you had the camera on, I'd ask you to demonstrate one. But yeah, this I can demonstrate it. It's like basically like before like you do anything, they're like just power pose and you'll do it better. So I think this is an example of a power pose. You just go like this. Do that.
I
And,
feel like I've heard clips of this TED Talk, or someone has shown me clips of
Yeah,
this.
yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
It
So
sounds very
it's
familiar.
yeah, it's pretty famous, I'd say. But she wrote a paper originally pretty academically focused, right? Like she did a study about it. She had a collaborator, right? And then somehow, some way, she ended up on a TED Talk, and she kind of told them what she found in the paper, right? But kind of to Melis's point about this kind of being like in the entertainment industry, my understanding is she had to kind of cut some corners on describing exactly how things worked. And, it was very popular, right? A lot of companies were like, yeah, we need to get our employees to power pose.
So power
and, like,
pose.
that is going to make them more productive, right? And then ever since then, like she just keeps getting invited onto more talks to explain to them exactly why the power pose is so important to employee success, right? And to the point where her original collaborator on the paper, completely disowned the paper. It's like, no, this is not what our paper said. This is not what our research indicated. This is complete nonsense. Get me out, right? And it's kind of like, oh, okay, right? So, and the reason I bring this up is because sometimes if you roll with the idea for long enough, it does lead to specific policies. Right. For example, some company out there, I'm pretty sure, has hired some group of people to do workshops for their employees
Power
on
pose.
how to power pose and why. So, this is kind of like where the whole industry comes from, right? Like it's not just one talk, it's like all this stuff surrounding it. And so to the point about comparing to government policies, I think there's a lot kind of relationship to that as well. I think, just a lot of the ideas to do with, say, kind of discrimination and stuff, like, that it's not just it showed up one day. Like a lot of people have been pushing for it kind of outside of companies, first and foremost, before it kind of started showing up inside company policies. Same with politics, I think, right? There's got to be the origination. It doesn't just show up as part of popular political discourse. Like it kind of came from elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. Well, some of it maybe gets industrialized into the ideas industry, but then there's also like grassroots movements, right? That maybe are like, I don't know, have different origins, or maybe it's all the same. I'm not really sure. That's just one another phrase that came to mind. The grass, like, a lot of politicians will label themselves as like grassroots, and like they're sort of like a little bit more localized in a way to the I don't know, the problems of their constituents. But I don't know. Actually, I don't really know how that's relevant anymore. But
I actually haven't seen that many TED Talks. The one you were talking about sounded very familiar, and one other that comes to mind was like one that was about choice paralysis. remember who the guy was, but he gave this example about going to like the store with, and he was trying to buy jeans, and he remembered back in the day, you know, there's only like two types of jeans, and it was easy to pick. And then he was like, but now you go to the store and there's like 20 different jeans, and then you leave because there's too many choices and you don't know what to choose. And that was interesting.
Yeah.
But
So the you also just now described like the power posing thing. I don't know. That sort of sounded like a game of telephone from like the original idea or the original paper,
yeah,
and the results of the paper.
departed from it.
And it's turned into this maybe somewhat silly implementation of it in companies and things like that. Do you think this is like one drawback of the ideas industry? And I don't know, ideas sort of trade hands and then become maybe lesser in a way.
Yes. The thing I would add to that is I'd say that, and this is why I continue to draw the comparison to political agendas. It's kind of like, I know some people have complained kind of in the abstract that a lot of if we talk about communism, for example, people have complained, oh, none of the actual implementations of communism were true to the idea,
Fair.
right? And so what's happening there? Well, I would say that, simply put, I'd say Karl Marx was the originator of the idea in the ideas industry. And then a lot of politicians took the bits that they liked and kind of distorted the bits they don't like and kind of built a political agenda and subsequently political institutions based off of those ideas. Right. So it's kind of in some way, I'd say, if you wanted to be very cynical about it, I'd say the ideas industry, it's almost like a trick that they make you believe that it's kind of a free kind of a situation where people could say whatever they want, but once there's a lot of money involved with the whole canceling or deplatforming people, it's not really free. It's kind of censored, and it's all kind of part of a larger political agenda, right? As to what kinds of ideas are promoted and what kind of ideas are silenced, right? And it's been done so effectively throughout history. I know, taking a more ancient example, that for the Chinese, like the reason why Confucius is such a big deal is because a lot of the ideas he had were very much in line with the idea of having an emperor rule the entire country, right? So of course the emperors were like, yeah, Confucius is a great guy. You all should listen to what he has to say, right? And there goes 2,000 years of Chinese history, right? That's a very powerful idea, right? And I think a lot of people, in the same way, they're trying to use their ideas to influence the public, and in less democratic settings, just the folks who have political power and then try to further their own agenda using.
So you think it's often sinister?
I think it's often
ideas industry.
I think it's often closely related with political interests. As to whether or not it's sinister, I mean, I used some examples that I would say the communist example for the three of us is going to come across as sinister.
Mhm.
I think the whole dynasty empire thing from ancient China is neutral at best. I haven't come up with any examples that you and I might think of as positive.
John Locke and the Bill of Rights and the
Sure,
every
but
man's born with these God-given rights or whatever.
The point, though, I would say, is not so much what do we think of any particular idea, but kind of from an agnostic point of view, what's the difference? The only difference here is what you and I think. The functional process is the same, right? Someone has an idea. They make it part of a political institution, and all of a sudden it's everywhere in our lives.
But, in our evaluation of whether or not it was sinister, John Locke led to the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights, and it's like, okay, it's maybe he had his heart in the right place all along.
Maybe. I don't know. I haven't talked to the guy.
sure.
I could think of one sinister thing
Okay.
for the John Locke. I mean, there is only one type of people that
That
had all those
rights were
rights.
guaranteed for. Yeah.
Yeah.
Property owning white men. Yeah.
Yep.
Uh, there you go.
And
There
that
you go.
might not have been his maybe not particularly his intention, but like Kevin was saying before, these people get these ideas and take the bits and parts that they like and then apply it.
Mm.
I guess the way that we're describing this as an industry, it's like there's a lot of like resellers, right? They're the originators of these thoughts, and then they bought these ideas, I mean, for free, and resold it. And in the case of, I guess, these political cases, like with communist leaders, or I don't know, with presidents and John Locke, maybe some of these people like benefited greatly, becoming these leaders and kind of used it to their advantage. While the originator got nothing, probably. Interesting.
So can we maybe we should start paying people to use their ideas. I guess that's what patents are about, huh?
Yeah. That's
Patents
like
are a
our
way to
closest
regulate the idea.
approximation.
Yeah. Patents are a good thing, right? Like it's good that we have them.
Well, that's what the idea is that we've all been sold on for so many
Yeah.
years. But is it really that good?
I don't know. Inventor comes up with something, doesn't want to get exploited by a big company who like steals the idea and can I don't know.
Well,
turn it
these
into something
days we
bigger.
look at where most of the patents are. A big point of contention is drug prices, right? Pharmaceutical companies come up with these patents for new drugs, and a bunch of people who need the drug to live can't pay for it because it's so bloody expensive. And the pharma company's like, well, I got to recoup my investment. If you don't let me earn this money, I wouldn't have invented this in the first place, right? So, I mean, that's an argument.
Is that really where it gets used a lot? I'd certainly believe it. I guess you're sort of more familiar with these sorts of lawsuits given your last job, right? But
yeah, so definitely pharmaceuticals is a big place. This happens a lot.
I don't know. But like intellectual property in general, like
I think it also deters competition. I don't know, I feel like there are some companies that'll try to patent this idea. It's like no one else can do it, and they monopolize the product. Didn't Apple at some point say that they actually had claim to I think rectangular phones and
yeah. We get those sorts of cases quite frequently. It's someone who may not appreciate all the nuances of the technical, benefits of this or that. Like, I can't say for certain and whether something's actually worth patenting. That's why they have these huge multi-million-dollar cases litigating this stuff.
Right.
But so that's the thing. The patent system is an idea that someone came up with a while back, sold the public and the political institutions of America, at least, that this was a good idea and you should structure your society accordingly. And I'm sure the guy who was really pushing for patents benefited a lot from this idea. And here we are, right? It's just kind of like, it's not just an idea, it's like an industry, especially today where there are so many ideas for so many competing agendas.
So Kevin, do you have a final stance on the matter? Ideas industry, good, bad, well regulated, poorly regulated, needs to be regulated more. What's
or
your
do you even have a stance?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, or it's or maybe things are just going just fine with the ideas industry, and maybe it is what it is, right? I don't know. Do you have a stance?
Do I have a final stance?
Yeah, your answer to this will determine whether you're a public intellectual or a thought leader.
I think that the current way it exists is got some serious problems.
Okay.
I don't know that there are good solutions to fix it without sacrificing other things, right? It kind of harkens back to our discussion about internet censorship, right? Because, Osmond, I know you made comments previously about how divided the American politics is today, right?
Yeah.
I think it has a lot to do with the ideas industry, because so many different people have a way to platform their ideas and get that out to people, right? So if you listen to your favorite guy, I listen to my favorite guy, we can't see eye to eye, like, that it's because of these ideas, right? Now, in the past, where you couldn't see your favorite guy, I couldn't see my favorite guy, but we could see each other and we're like, we don't want to fight. It might give the appearance that we're all kind of more unified and whatnot, right? So it's like, well, there are bad things that come out of this, right? And we've seen things, right? Like, when Trump tells all his, essentially tries to tell people to like go, kind of hang around the Capitol. Like, I don't even know what exactly he said, right? But a lot of people got the idea. Like, clearly this wasn't just like they all happened to show up one day, right? Like, there's some organization surrounding the events, right? Like, these are some bad outcomes, right? But you can't, like, it's hard to come in and like regulate that with a kind of in the abstract good like agenda, because anyone who regulates anything has their own agenda, right? So you're just kind of giving someone else explicit power to assert their agenda over
Yeah,
someone
but
else's
see,
agenda.
you, Kevin, as a benevolent dictator, you would be like, what would you want to change, right?
Well,
For the
obviously,
better.
the point of view gun, right? Like Justin's saying, right? I just shoot that at everyone, and then everyone has my point of view, right? But like, from like a system perspective, like you can't. It's hard to regulate, and it's very poorly regulated, I think, right now. I don't see a clear
Poorly
way.
regulated, but no good solution.
Yeah, I don't see a good solution here, because we see a lot of bad outcomes coming out of the ideas industry, right? How do you regulate it? So as far as I think so good, bad, or okay, I don't think it's good. I think there are bad parts of it, but I don't
Can't
have a
do anything
solution.
about it.
So in a way, I guess it's okay. It's like a fact of life almost.
Yeah, it is what it is, right? I don't know. I just like. Do you don't have like a call to arms for us for me and Melis? Like, what can we do better as a society to improve
I don't know.
our
Like, so I wanted to bring this up just to kind of get folks like opinions in the sense that do you find this to be a interesting or useful way to think about the things we encounter in our day-to-day lives, right? Because now that I've hashed out some of the concepts and vocabulary, like I think I can view the ideas industry with a much more kind of prepared mindset rather than kind of just being passively there and perhaps subject to their manipulations.
Yeah.
subject to their manipulations, huh? Like this video that told you about the ideas industry.
Yeah, so I would say that, two things, right?
Oh,
One,
no.
I have been influenced by that idea.
You've already been trapped.
Exactly. And two, I'm a reseller, right?
Uh-huh.
Because it was that person's idea, but I thought it was really interesting. So I wanted to bring it up and see what you guys all thought.
Mhm.
Right. So
I've definitely never thought about it.
Yeah. One would hope that the ideas sort of live in a marketplace. I feel like that's like a nicer way to maybe conceptualize it. But yeah, I think using the word industry maybe gets at how commercialized some of this has become. I don't know. I think that sort of naturally leads its way to the divisiveness that you'd mentioned, which is a bad thing. But yeah, if it was a little bit more marketplacey, where we're all sort of like, I don't know, exposed to all these different ideas all at once, then it's I think it better. Like that's like I think something that we can strive for. Or like ideas have an equal footing almost. And it's like I don't know.
It's the problem is I think it has to do with precisely that marketplace vibe where you as a consumer of ideas get to choose which ideas you like because it's all out on the internet, right? And like some of the, I don't want to say memes, but like commentary surrounding kind of a lot of the internet companies that make a lot of money out of ad revenue. It's like they're just capitalizing on that. They show you what you want to see
Right.
because they know you'll watch it and give them ad revenue, right? If you
Yeah,
wanted
but
to see some,
that's the distinction I'm trying to draw between like the industry of ideas versus the marketplace of ideas. Because I feel like a marketplace is a little bit more like, I don't know, I think of like walking down a farmer's market and it's just like a little bit like calmer and just smaller and quainter and just like chiller. Whereas, maybe the way the ideas industry is manifested these days is these mega corporations that have their own political agendas, and they sort of shove it down our throats in this like
So
very,
you want more of like a street market place for
a
ideas.
street market of ideas. I think it would be a
you
little
would
bit better.
hope that our educational institutions could provide something of that sort, but I think
They've
the
all got
ideas
agendas
industry
too.
has already infiltrated those institutions very heavily.
Maybe, but it's like, yeah, I guess they do. Well, kids are on their phones all the time, being brainwashed. And
Right.
yeah,
So then
no,
it
but that's
goes,
an interesting point. You're saying school ought to be that like street market of ideas, huh?
yeah, like you would hope that it's there to educate you, right?
Yeah.
And I think one fundamental thing that's true about education is you want to see as much as you can, right? Like,
Yeah. So my question: so how
Well,
corrupted do you think
so
education
oh,
is? No, go ahead, Mel. It's actually
yeah, so I agree it should be, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of issues that I think make that impossible. I feel like one thing is going to be like price and location. Obviously there's going to be more of a certain type of like a certain group of socioeconomic status will go to this one school, and there'll be similar people of that kind, and you're going to run into those similar ideas.
yeah.
For example, when I went to Marist, my high school, most of them were rich people, and all their ideas were very drastic and different than the ideas that I had. And I mean, in that case, I think it was a good experience for me to learn of what kind of other people think. But in their cases, they're all hearing the same ideas and not really hearing anything different because it's all the same type of people that are conversing with each other and learning from each other. And I think and a lot of schools are like that. They're very divided. So they should be that, but I think they haven't been that for a while, and it doesn't just have to do with like the online influencing. There's a lot more like older factors that kind of play into that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now that it actually makes me think that this K through 12 education really isn't the place to foster this marketplace of ideas. Yeah, because each school is sort of like tethered to its location, and then like
funding, right?
yeah, and then tethered to their funding too. So that sort of makes me appreciate college for what it is. Bringing people from sort of all over. At least our college, right? Will Rice was just this literally random group of people sticking together, see what happens.
I wouldn't say it's entirely random.
Sure.
There's an admissions process.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, maybe college is good for that. And then, I feel like people sort of cite that as like a benefit of college. It's like you meet new people and people from around the world and get exposed to new ideas. But, some of it probably does get tainted by the industry of ideas. Yeah.
Well, I will just say this as far as like the effect of universities. It's I think in the abstract, the best way, if we're talking about your marketplace of ideas, is it's kind of like you kind of described by analogy, right? You just have everything you can out in the
Mhm.
open,
Yeah.
have people go look at it. And it's like it's a two-way street, right? On the one hand, you as an institution need to supply as many angles on the world as you can. But on the other hand, the students themselves need to go out of their way to try and get as diverse a view of things as possible. And then kind of come home, digest everything, and decide, okay, what's the good things that I like and what are the bad things I don't like? The problem is that process is difficult to construct and very tedious to walk, right? It's easier to just go to the supermarket, grab the cucumbers you came for, and go back instead of touring the whole marketplace and figuring out if actually I want cucumbers or something else, right? So people take the shortcut because it's cheaper and less tedious, and we kind of have this sort of situation going
I
on.
know, but then we sort of get bullied around by the cucumber lobby, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? So it's kind of like, it's like, do they teach you communism at school? No, they just tell you it's bad, right? And it's not like you're taught the different ways and then you decide for yourself. Because I think a lot of people are worried, well, what if they decide communism is good? Wouldn't that upset like the American social structure, right? You know, as an example, we
Yeah.
talk about communism. You could insert any sort of political sort of issue into there, right? It's very rare that you'll get an education that really lets you dive into multiple sides of an issue, and let you kind of decide for yourself because there's social pressure and all the sorts of other things, right? So there's an existing set of ideas that are very entrenched that govern a lot of our society, and yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny you brought up that teaching about communism thing, because I know I kind of had an experience with that in high school, where at my high school, I heard like communism was bad from like so many of like my peers. And then the first time when I actually sat down in history class and we were learning about it, I was like, yo, this sounds awesome. I was like, why does everyone say such bad things about it?
Yeah.
But yeah, that was just one of those, one of those examples of just, how, I don't know, how these people are fed all these, they're just kind of, force fed this, how to think about this idea that came out. And I don't know, I guess in that case, the school did its job, kind of offer that marketplace, I was able to get a different side of the idea.
I guess the as far as really nailing down this marketplace analogy, we've talked a little bit about the Socratic method before, Tevin, I think. Well, we certainly talk about Socrates, but the Socratic method being like, you got a whole bunch of people just hanging around and then like asking each other questions, and then like, it just sort of like the ideas sort of fall out of that, right? Like at least I remember in high school when I was employing the Socratic method, it would be like we actually like move all the chairs in a circle, and then like we all just sort of like talk and ask questions, and like I guess that is the marketplace of ideas. But
as a quick aside, I realized something about the Socratic method. A lot of elementary school students like to use it. They just keep asking you why, until you can't answer them anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
That's what it is in a nutshell, essentially.
Yeah. And so I don't know, maybe they're doing it right. Maybe that's the right way to, I don't know. Because they're not looking for shortcuts. They're looking for a fundamental reason, right?
Well, I mean, for within any given situation, it's possible that you have good sessions where I think, you can truly get sort of kind of an open discourse. But a lot of times it's kind of sabotaged halfway, where someone jumps out and will say, how could you possibly think that? Like, that's unacceptable. Your insert label here, right? Like it's very sad when those sorts of things happen, in my view, right? Where we can't, talk about an idea for what the idea is worth, and people just kind of get ad hoc attacked, right? And I think that creates some of the division, right?
For sure.
People start hearing things they don't like,
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
They just start saying those sorts of things. It's just,
Yeah.
you're from X company in the ideas industry. I'm from Y company in the ideas industry. We're competitors and we can't see eye to eye. Like that's literally what it feels like.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's a funny comparison. This reminds me of when I was working at Coke and not being able to talk about the competitor. Yeah.
It's like, what's wrong with talking about? No, you don't understand. Who's like paying you right now?
Yeah. No, but see, like, I guess it makes sense from the Coke perspective as an employee of Coke, right? But then when we're talking about Democrats and Republicans, it's, I don't know. We're trying to work together here, right? To like,
Well, you might be, but
Yeah.
some people certainly aren't.
yeah. And that's just terrible. I think that's just terrible. But I don't know. I think it's fine for Coke and Pepsi, at least as an employee of Coke. I don't know, but yeah, maybe it's that sort of mindset that, like, you know, when it seeps into the rest of our, the other facets of our lives, and you know, it leads to what I think is the harmful and divisive nature of our politics today.
You know, that actually kind of reminds me of I was watching this show where this dude went to, I think it was in Denmark, and they were talking about how anyway, they had a lot of refugees that went into the country, and they have like some very like anti like Islamic policies where they don't like let women wear their burqas, like the head coverings and stuff. And I think the idea was that like with Denmark culture, they want to have one culture and like one idea to have this kind of like sense of unity, and that like if you introduce these like other ideas, it can create division and like discord. So like I think some people can see like as, you know, having all these different ideas as like a threat, you know, that's going to create a lot of division and fighting, which I mean we're seeing we're seeing in our own country, of course, but you know, is it, you know, is really having one idea, you know, the right answer? I don't know.
It definitely creates unity. If you and I all think the same thing, we're gonna be unified. That's for sure.
Yeah, but then we lose our individuality.
I don't think it's just that, but I think there can be some like benefits. I mean, obviously, I think diversity of thought can, you know, bring in some like new perspectives and new ideas that can benefit everyone. But you know, yeah,
I think that my take on this is diversity and kind of tolerance is kind of our imperfect solution to an imperfect world. It's kind of like if we just wanted world peace, like that kind of unity you described is the ideal way to do it, right? Like if everyone were the same, thought the same, right? Like there's nothing to fight about.
there's nothing.
Right?
It's
the utopia, right? You know, like what they tried to construct in 1984. But the thing is, like, first, setting aside whether or not we want to get there, right? Getting there is going to be quite a, I'm going to say bloody process. It's not that easy to get everyone to become the same all of a sudden, right? So, you know, if you don't want to go through all that, right? Well, then it's better to have an open mind, right? And be accepting of people rather than kind of sticking to your one unit, like singular vision and trying to like impose it on the rest of the world, right? So, you know, in reality, I think having an open mind is better than, you know, kind of just one subjective kind of vision. I just want this, you know, I don't care about what anyone else thinks. But as you said, kind of with the Denmark example, there are merits, right? If you can kind of control things.
All right. Well, I think we are nearing or upon an hour. So
are there any actually I kind of had a final question. So I think we've been mostly focusing, I guess, on the idea
Fair enough.
industry part. It's been super interesting. But is there any on the online influencers part? Is there any, I guess, particular online influencer any of you follow? Just out of curiosity.
Like, I've been following this one chess channel called Agad Mator. So I'm a pawn of his chess ideas. At least that's how I've been following recently. And so, yeah. And, you know, back when I was playing Fortnite, I watched a lot of Cypher PK, a lot of good educational content. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe nobody like is like, you know, more important, like whatever. Ben Shapiro, I feel like is maybe like a big online influencer, for better or worse. Yeah.
I mean, I guess other than like the entertainment aspect, was there, I guess, any kind of thoughts or actions that kind of influenced you? Like, I don't know, did watching that chess channel like make you want to play chess more, or I don't know, or something?
Yeah. It
nature.
did make me crave chess, and yeah, I nothing I feel like more meaningful than that. I just have been playing chess a little bit more. Or I don't know if that's politically charged or anything, but I'm sure his
Black and
agenda is
white
to just, you
pieces,
know,
Osmond. Careful there.
Yeah, I don't know. What about you, Kevin? Any online influencers you follow?
So I want to preface this with I get the feeling that saying that I am influenced by an online influencer carries a sort of negative connotation there. It's like, you simpleton, like what's wrong with you? Right? To that extent, I would say that I am also a person who has been influenced by that stigma, and I don't have a conscious kind of admission anywhere. It's like, oh yeah, I really follow this guy. I truly don't believe that there's one or any particular person that I follow in that way. But, you know, I think that's part of the problem, right? Like, if there has been any sort of impact on me like that, I probably wouldn't even be super conscious of it most of the time. So yeah, that's kind of my situation.
Hi, Melis, what about you? Who you subscribe to?
Who do I say? No, lately, I think I subscribed to Nick A30. I don't know if either of you heard of him. Fortnite streamer. He's one of the more family friendly streamers. Definitely super positive. So I really like watching him. I think there's not enough of that in the, I guess, the gaming world.
What do you mean
There's
family friendly?
So I think specifically he doesn't use any kind of inappropriate language, essentially.
Okay, language.
Yeah. And overall, it's just very positive. You know, there's no kind of toxicity. He doesn't like talk down to people. You know, he doesn't really trash talk, which is very common around a lot of gamers. And I don't know, it's just nice. And I think it's something that needs to be seen more in like the gaming community. I think there's a lot of toxicity.
No doubt.
I mean, we've definitely seen it in like Overwatch chats, and I'm sure it's even, I haven't played League, but I've heard that it's even worse in League. I don't know. I think it's a lot more constructive, and that's why I recently subscribed to him.
Okay.
And
So you're trying to shove PC culture down our throats, huh?
Exactly.
Always got an agenda, huh?
The trick is making sure that they don't think you're shoving it down their throats, but they're willingly swallowing. That's when you're really successful.
Yeah, I guess I think the streaming industry as a whole. I mean, I've told you guys I've been trying to start a stream.
Yes. I wanted to bring this up.
And I think, I don't know, seeing all these different kind of like content creators and streamers, guess kind of opened my eyes to see like the things that I could possibly do.
Mhm.
I think in general, it kind of shows a whole new avenue that people can like take in life, you know, and it's definitely influenced my decisions.
Yeah. So
Ha-
when's
haven't
it
taken any.
happening? When's it started?
That is TBD.
Okay. Okay. Is there anything
It's,
logistics wise you need?
honestly, recently I've just been slacking on it. I've just been being pretty lazy about not doing stuff. I don't know. Recently, I've been like rethinking the name, and I don't know. I feel like I should just like not think about the name so much and just pick one and just like get it started.
You can always
Mhm.
change the name later, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Unless you're going to
I
be
mean,
merching right off the bat.
yeah. And I doubt I'm gonna be like, who knows? But you know, I doubt I'm gonna be like extremely popular off the bat. In which case, I
Yeah.
would have to stick with the name. But yeah, that's a good point.
So Mad Moves.
Oh no, that was I can't. The original was gonna be Mesta Moves, but I don't know.
Mesta Moves.
Oh.
Oh, Mesta Moves. Right. What about Modesta Moves?
Maybe.
Because it's like also like maddest moves, right? I think Kevin also said that, right? All right, sleep
yeah.
on it. Think about it.
yeah. I'm gonna think on it.
All right.
All right, cool. Well, we hopefully one day we will all be subjects of Melis's online influence. I await that day.
Gonna brainwash all of you.
Yeah. Do good for the ideas industry, Melis. Okay. No other comments? Then I will wrap it up.